Hey everybody, welcome to another weekly angel card reading video. I'm Trudy, One Grounded Angel, and this is for the week beginning Monday, May the 14th to the 20th, 2018. So on Tuesday the 15th, we have a Taurus new moon. So Taurus, the new moon always falls, by the way, wherever the sun is. The full moon will be the one directly opposite, so 6 months away. So we just had Scorpio, full moon, 2 weeks ago. Scorpio is the opposite sign to Taurus. So now we're in coming up to the new moon for Taurus. New moons are all about new beginnings, about sowing the seeds for what we want to create. And we can do that well by channeling what that sign is all about. Taurus is a very, it's almost a contradiction because it's very earthy. They've got a strong affinity with nature, love being outdoors, have that real connection with the movements of the planet. But equally, they love the finer things in life. They're sort of renowned for being shopaholics, which isn't very fair, but because they don't buy a lot, but what they do buy is the best. There's no skimping. So it might be a time for looking at, you know, in the extreme, Taurians can be hoarders. So it might be a time for looking at where you're holding on to too much and where you could get rid of those and get something good, you know. Instead of having 50 pairs of shoes, could you just have the 15 that you use? I don't know. I'm not really a shoe person. I'm a barefoot type of person. I'm the wrong person to ask. I would happily walk around in flip-flops all year round if I could. Or even better yet, barefoot. So the other thing about Taurians is they're quite, you know, stubborn because they're symbolized by the bull-headed. So it might be a time for looking at where you're trying to hold on to things again, as I said, but where you're being really stubborn and belligerent around that. So it doesn't mean you have to change. It just means that where you're being pushed by your intuition to change things up and you're resisting, really ask yourself, where is that resistance coming from? Is it really necessary? Is this for my greater good? Because sometimes our reasons for holding on to things are just solely fear. We don't want to change because we're scared of the unknown, and that's understandable. It's very human. But so those are really the main things that could be coming up with Taurus. What I find with a Taurus new moon is because Taurus can activate your five senses, or be very much around, you know, the pleasure, because it's ruled by Venus. So they're big foodies. They love the tastes of things, the smells. They're into fragrance. They love, you know, they're quite visual. They can be into, you know, fashion and style. So those sorts of things. I find that I notice detail more often around this time. I don't know, maybe it's just me. As I may have mentioned earlier, or in previous videos, I am a Scorpio. So this is my direct opposite sign. And you might think that that means that you don't get along. Actually, I get along very well with Taurians. They have a strong connection. If you're 6 months or directly opposite a sign, that means you've got a good bond with them usually, or you've got a lot in common with them. So I find that I'm quite, I do quite well during a Taurus time. It feels like things are coming up for me. The one you want to avoid is the sign 5 signs away. So as a Scorpio, I'm not very good with Aries at all. I know some great Aries, but most of them I just clash with some of their impetuousness and that sort of thing. But and they often say when it comes to relationships, you want to try and avoid someone who's 5 signs away from you. But anyway, I do find with Taurus, I notice detail more. I notice smells and tastes and all those sort of things around a Taurus new moon. I don't know why. Sometimes I wonder with that stuff whether it's just the power of suggestion, because you're aware of it. Oh yeah, this might come up. Suddenly it does. That doesn't mean it's happened organically. I don't know whether I've created it or not. But anyway, now that I've spent 4 minutes talking about things that may not even affect you, I'll start with what this video is designed to do, which is to delve into the angel cards. So if you haven't watched one of these before, I am dealing a card that's not going to predict the events of a day in question. It's just going to give you information that will help you on that day. And it may be that it doesn't make sense to you now. Maybe it will make sense down the track. Or maybe it's something that you need to know to help someone else because they need it. So anyway, Monday is abundance. Interestingly, this is a very Taurus idea. Abundance, particularly when it comes to money, is a very Taurus idea. They're usually quite savvy with money. So it might be a time for you to make some financial decisions, set financial goals. As I mentioned, new moons are about goals, Get on top of your finances and figure out where you want to be. Start your savings plan, or your, what you want to do in terms of your mortgage. So when we delve into abundance, what it's about is having enough. The idea of abundance is not just about money. It's about having enough support, enough love, knowing that we are supplied for today, tomorrow, all our tomorrows, knowing that we have everything we need, and knowing that believing in abundance means believing in what you can't see yet. You can't see how tomorrow is going to look, but it's a game of trust in terms of knowing that you're going to have everything you need then. So this may not actually be about money for you at all. I'm using money because that is the association most people make when it comes to abundance, but it could just be about you knowing that you have enough, more than enough actually. So maybe all this card is asking you to do is to enjoy how much you have in your life that's working, and that is amazing, because there was a time when you didn't have the amazing relationships that you have now, that you didn't have the job you have now, all those sorts of things. So really, maybe all this card could be prompting you to do is to really take a moment to appreciate those and to be grateful for them. But if you're in a place of lack, or you perceived lack right now, this probably is asking you to understand that you are supplied for and to let go of that fear, because we attract what we're afraid of. So if you're afraid of not having enough money, or you think I'm not going to have enough, or particularly people who are self-employed, I know for me, I'm self-employed, this can come up for me a lot. Understanding that you'll have enough means you can kind of let go of that fear and focus on what you do have, and then you start to attract more blessings. So let's move on to Tuesday now, the 15th of May. No, I thought it was going to be that card. Oh my! I just got 4 cards, so I'm not going to read 4 cards. I'm going to put that back and pick up another one. It wasn't coming together for me, and yeah, I just felt like that's not quite right. Today I was shuffling for a client this morning, and I actually dropped the whole deck, and partly that was clumsiness, but also it's very cold here today, so I've got bad circulation in my hands, and my shuffling was even worse, if you can imagine. But I sort of took that as a sign that I was completely going the wrong direction there. So Tuesday we have Simplify Your Life. And I love the simplicity of the daisy that's pictured on this card. This particular card deck, Flower Healing, is all about flowers, or dedicated to flowers. And what this card asks you to do is to remember that when you spread yourself too thin, you end up failing in a lot of different areas instead of winning in all of them, or having small victories in a lot of different areas. And this is reminding you to come back to what's really important to you. Spending time with your family, developing your personal development, or working on your spiritual practice, your health, always a cornerstone. And to remember how that when you try to do all things at once, it's not going to go so well. So this is asking you to cut out the things that aren't working for you, or to pull away from the things where the events or the real drains on your energy that you're not getting anywhere with. And that doesn't mean because you're failing, it just means that you can't win across the board all at once. So come back to what's really important for you right now. What do I need to be doing? And it might be different things for different people. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you're in spring, so you're coming into bloom. So it might be about you choosing the areas where things are flourishing, maybe your business or your work, and to really kind of go hard with that. Here, as I mentioned, it's getting very cold. Maybe you're being asked to hibernate and to focus on keeping your health and vitality up, because this is a time when people tend to, staying indoors means we can often pick up more illnesses because we're in confined spaces. So it's about asking you to focus on what's really important right now, and not to overcomplicate your life by getting involved in things that don't matter, other people's dramas, worrying about things that don't really concern you, and just focusing on what really matters. It's interesting how often it takes crisis or a catastrophe for us to come back to what's really important, and then we realize I wasted all those hours focusing on this. And actually, particularly when people get chronic illness, they often talk about how life comes very much into focus, and they realize these are the people who matter, not all these other people that I was running around trying to please. Wednesday, don't compromise I love how unflinching the woman is in this card. It's this particular card deck is dedicated to saints. It says this is Saint Agnes of Rome. I don't know if that's actually her or just the depiction of anyone, but there's a real when we think of someone refusing to back down, sometimes we think of them as being really aggressive, such as in that bull example I used earlier. But actually, this card is reminding you that you can be assertive without being aggressive, and you're really being asked to do that, to stand your ground, very bull-like. I mentioned how you can be sometimes too rigid in the wrong places, but this is about, again, what are your values? What's important? It's important for you to be treated fairly, so stand up to anyone who's not doing that. In terms of compromise, often we get the word compromise confused with sacrifice, particularly in relationships. There's this idea that, you've got relationships are about compromise, so I have to give up all this stuff. Well, that's a sacrifice. And of course, there will be some sacrifices, but pay attention to whether you're giving up everything and the other person's not, or vice versa. Really look at whether, because a compromise is going to be more win than losses for both parties. So making sure that you're not self-sacrificing and justifying it by saying, oh, look at me, I'm being so good, I'm compromising, when actually what you're doing is giving up, and you're doing that because you're too scared to fight for what's important. So there's a lot I could say about this actually, but I feel very much it's about making sure that you are, if you are giving something up, making sure that you're getting something in return and not just a false sense of security. So I really have focused on relationships, and I'm very aware that I do that too much sometimes. But I really believe that human connection is one of the cornerstones of our existence. And so because relationships have been such a struggle for me, that is often where I come back to. But there are so many areas this could be relating to. It could be asking you to, in terms of your work situation, to stand up for yourself. Maybe you're dealing with someone, maybe an organisation where they're trying to bully you, or they're trying to change the terms of your agreement, such as, when you've bought something and what you've received isn't quite right, or isn't, the things just aren't as clear as they should have, or they haven't delivered what they've promised. It can be very easy to go, oh, I can't be bothered. But you're being asked not to compromise here on what you really want and what you deserve too. Excuse me, snivelling, that was really unpleasant. We've got some back burning going on in the Blue Mountains, just out of Sydney, and the smoke from those bushfires tends to drift over the city. It's been really bad lately. My hay fever has just been really unpleasant. So back burning, I just realised you probably don't know that if you don't live in Australia. It's sort of safety burning that takes place, usually in times when it's not high summer, so that it's easier to control the fire, so that a fire doesn't start spontaneously, which would be more difficult to control. And fires here are very much about regeneration. They often, that's the natural cycle of the bush, is to burn things down so that new things can grow. I don't want to go into a deep ecology lesson here, but anyway, that's why I sniffed, and it was ugly. So I'll try not to do it anymore, because there's a microphone right here. No one wants to hear me sniffling in their ears. It's bad enough on public transport. Thursday is about Medicine Woman. Now, I had this card come up actually for a client this very morning, and I learned a bit more about it, because what I normally associate with this card is about a woman or a man, it could be, who's got strong spiritual abilities and is being encouraged to use them. But when I delved more into the card and learned a bit more about it, the goddess on this is from the Goddess Guidance Oracle cards. This is a Mayan goddess called, I just realised her name's on there. I was trying to remember. Ixchel, that's how I'm saying it. Sorry if I've got that wrong. And she is associated with motherhood and real maternal energy. Now, as I've explained, you do not need to be a woman to have maternal energy. In fact, no matter what your physical gender or the gender that you identify with, we both have masculine and feminine energy. And so this could be, because it's a very empowering card, as you can see with the lightning around it, it's asking you really to or reminding you how powerful you are. So if, for example, you are a mother and you are doubting yourself at the moment, or you're struggling in your relationship with your kids, this is reminding you you are absolutely born to do this and you are good enough. So keep going and keep believing in yourself. If you aren't sure how to deal with a problem, remember you can ask your angels for help. And this is also letting you know you've got what it takes to deal with the situation. So now, if you are not a mum and that doesn't, or you are, but that just doesn't relate to you right now, this is asking you to remember how powerful you are. So again, regardless of your gender, you've got what it takes to deal with the situations that are in front of you. And if what you're facing is, let's start that again. Often what we're facing, if in terms of emotional kind of struggles, are related to old wounds. For example, if you're dealing with a relationship that's faltering, I know it's a relationship example again, how predictable. Or you're fighting, and that's been the pattern in all your relationships as you end up in a particular style of fighting. Usually repetition happens because there's something there that we need to heal from. And it doesn't go away until we deal with it. So that old adage of nothing goes away until it teaches us what we need to know. So try to look for the lesson if what you're dealing with is, I am getting, this is very much about healing from what we're dealing, what's weighing us down, where we're hurting, where those scars on our hearts are. And it's letting us know we've got the power to heal. So it's really empowering us to do what we need to do to work through what's weighing us down, not to fall into old habits of denying that we've got a problem, or to take it out on other people, such as in that fighting example. Because often it's easier to pick, if we don't speak up for ourselves in a relationship, often there's something that we're holding back and we need to tell them. Often it comes out in some other way, picking a fight, or retracting from them, or spending more time away from them, withholding sex, all those sorts of things. What is unspoken will come out in some other way. So this is really asking us to deal with what's going on under the surface. And often, if it is a relationship, it's actually got nothing to do with the other person at all. It's all about us. And that can relate to anything you're dealing with in your life. I'm going to go with this deck now. Friday. Yeah, Friday. Oh, goodness. We're already at 17 minutes. So, of course, I would choose this larger card deck to awkwardly shuffle. Oh, okay, that one. That was a really weird way for this card to come out, but oh well, that's what it needed. So flexible. There is a gymnast on this card, and it's interesting. One particular card deck I deal with has a yoga message on it, or there's also a stretch card, and they aren't always about the act of yoga or stretching. They're often about where we need to be more flexible in our lives. So emotionally, where we're perhaps not compromising. I know we just had a card about don't compromise, but where we're being bullheaded again. So it's almost about needing to understand where we need to push and when we need to pull back. So trying to get into those, find those natural rhythms. And often when we're holding on to something that no longer serves us, or we're holding on to something that is harming us in some way, it's because we're scared to let go. That's an ego response. So this is asking you to be more flexible in your thinking, in the way you treat other people, instead of holding on tightly to your ideas about how things should be. I hate the word should, because when we're using the word should, it begs the question, why is that? What does that relate to? Is there an unspoken set of rules that you're deferring to? Oh, this should happen because I was taught that's how it should happen. And you have to ask yourself, is that actually true? So, yeah, it's a telling word where you're using the word should. Ooh, this card just did a little dance on the table. Clear your space. We had the decluttering message 2 Sundays ago, and I guess in the Northern Hemisphere it's spring. Maybe you're already thinking about the spring clean. But there's never a bad time to do this, to be honest. We tend to hoard too much stuff, and I mentioned how tourists can do this. And that doesn't mean if you're not a tourist, you might You know, if you're not a Taurus, you might still be a hoarder. It depends on where, you know, what's happening in that particular house for you, the second house in your astro chart. But for anyone, this is really about clearing your space. Now, if you've just done a declutter, I did a kind of a low-grade one a couple of weeks ago, but there is always more to be done, and there's always more clearing. If this doesn't pertain to your physical stuff, it might be about your thought patterns. So what do you need to let go of? So, you know, I feel like I've said this multiple times already during this reading. We're being asked to let go of what we're holding on to that no longer serves us. That's not the same as letting go of what's important for us and what, you know, what our value system depends on or is constructed around. It's more about the things that we're holding on to that are actually adversely affecting us. So a bit of a clear out, I guess. Taking more charge, I'm getting, which is appropriate given that bull stuff. Taking more charge is what they're saying to me, which doesn't really make sense, but taking greater charge of your experience by clearing away what's no longer serving you, by not letting yourself be pushed around by others, but holding on to, I guess, drilling down to what's really important again, which relates to that simplify message. A Sunday, very straightforward message here. The person you're asking about is trustworthy. So I don't know what that relates to, but probably you will. And if you don't, maybe you will by the time Sunday rolls around. But even if you don't, it's important to remember when it comes to trust, your intuition will always tell you who you can trust. Sometimes our reasons for not trusting someone is because they remind us of someone who betrayed us in the past, or perhaps there's an old pattern there of, you know, being let down, even if it doesn't relate to the kind of relationship this is showing up for. Sometimes it's about safety, and this was a big thing for me. I've had big issues around safety and not feeling safe to open up and to you know, allow people in terms of relationships, all types of relationships. So maybe that's something that speaks to you as well. You don't need to worry that someone's going to let you down unless your intuition is telling you that that's going to happen. And if that's the case, you need to be really... Wow, I just got an alert coming because this is plugged into my laptop. I just got an alert, some update that's needed, and it just blasted right through my ears. That was really unpleasant. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe they're trying to tell me that I need to pay attention to this. So ask your intuition. If you're not sure whether you can trust someone, ask your intuition. And if you still don't get it, ask for a sign. I've talked about typical signs before. I won't go into that here. You can search that on my website, www.onegroundedangel.com. Just type signs into the search field. But typically your gut will always tell you this. And so what is going on for you if you feel like you can't trust somebody is you need to ask yourself, is this a mental response based on a pattern that's repeated, or based on a fear I have related to the past, or just general safety? Or is it actually right here, my gut is telling me this person, something's off about them? I remember I work in magazines, and some years ago, there was a woman who a lot of people really loved. She was very good at her job, but there was just something off about her. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew I couldn't quite trust her. Anyway, as it went on, she stabbed a lot of people in the back. And yeah, I don't want to go into it in case people watching this know who I'm talking about, but my feelings were right. So it didn't really affect me too much because I had kept her at arm's length, but there were people who had trusted her that she really betrayed in order to get ahead. Anyway, that's the week. So I feel like this idea of letting go is very prominent, and this message here, simplifying your life, is coming through strongly as well. So that really comes back to what is important to you, what actually matters, making sure we're not getting tied up in things that don't matter. So what else? I think it's about doing a clearer way of what's no longer serving us and making sure we're not holding on when we need to be letting go. That's it for the week. Thank you for watching. I do post these on my Insta. That's @OneGroundedAngel. and also on my Facebook page, which is conveniently enough also called One Grounded Angel. And of course, you can reach me via my website. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to reading for you again next week. Take care.